Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Okay, so we finished verse 26 last time of chapter 6. That was a very important verse that we did, and it talked about practice. Whoever is trying to meditate knows this difficulty that the mind wanders, and it gave you trick what we need to do. So last verse, the English translation was, from whatever cause the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, from that let him restrain it and bring it back to be under the control of the self alone. So that's a very significant thing, self alone. So your Krishna Bhagavan is absolutely clear that, if when you're sitting down and no matter what you do, at whatever stage the mind can just run here and there. Could be several causes for it. We went over it in detail. For everybody, there could be different reasons why it runs. Basically, because of our own, sanskaras, tendencies in our mind, it can just pop up anytime. So it said that for whatever cause it wanders, let them restrain it and bring it back. So that's the whole practice. And bring it under the sway of self alone. That's what it is. So now we go to the next one, which is verse 27. Prashantamanasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutamakalmasham. Prashant manasam. Just about shant se prashant bana, very special shant, very deep shanti. Manasam is mind, so one of peaceful mind. He is verily, enam is this, yoginam, yogi. We know we're talking about dhyana yogi over here. Sukham, everybody knows, sukh means bliss here. Uttamam, best kind of sukh, supreme. So here is, I think Kamlaji is not here, but it's telling you the highest. So this is what one of the verses for her query that she had put, that, this is the highest state because Uttamam, best. Upeti comes, Shanta Rajasam, one whose passion is quietened. And we will go in detail. And this is the Rajas Tamas सत्वा के ऊपर से बोला शांत रजस थोड़ा कम हो जाए और शांत हो जाए बेसिकली. ब्रह्म भूतम मीनिंग बिकमिंग ब्रह्मन, like the river becoming the ocean, same analogy. Akalmasham, kalmash यानी dirt, और यहाँ पर is sin बोला, and we'll see what it means. One who is free from it. So kalmasham and akalmasham. So that's what the word meanings are. And let's see what he's saying over here now. He's telling you the final state now. So with the regular practice of meditation, what happens is person's mind abides in the self. And this yogi or this dhyana yogi, Bhagavan says, he become prashant manasam, means whose mind has become absolutely quiet. Not just little bit quiet, but absolutely quiet. And then he was just reminding us, that how when the attention is on the self, these are Nikhilananji's some points, very good ones. So when attention is on the self, so when the mind abides in the self, that's when mind becomes absolutely quiet. So that's why I always say that here in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan has very much pointed out that we have to, think about that self, and we have to put attention on the self. So he was analyzing the, hey, why does that happen? If somebody wants to know that, hey, how did the mind become quiet? Because once you become that get that supreme shanti, and that shanti has a happiness in it too. They are linked. Whenever we say that our mind is not happy, that means it's ashant. So there is a direct connection between peacefulness and happiness. So what he was saying is that we are looking for happiness in the world, right? That's what the whole khatpat that we do during the day is, so that my life becomes better than what it was before. So we are all searching happiness, but most of the time we are looking at the wrong place. Now, in this process of meditation, after the mind has become quiet, and abiding in the self, you have gained what you were looking for outside. That's what it is. You have finally gained what you were looking for. That's why it has become totally quiet and happy. Because it has experiencing that great peace and joy. It has gained that. And how it has done it? Because the restlessness is gone. So, I think somebody's, I'm sorry, I think Joe ka hai. Okay. And Sneha, you have to mute also. Yeah. This whole system is so sensitive that if it's unmute, it start bringing all kind of noises. Okay. So, Prashant, we saw that Shant ke aage pra laga diya na. So means very, very peaceful, deeply peaceful. Anytime there is a pra before, that's in Sanskrit ka kuch grammar ka rule hai. And then, so how it has happened? So we know we have 3 different gunas. The whole Prakriti is made, and I'm not going to go too much in detail because there's a whole chapter going to come on chapter 14. We'll really learn in detail. But just basically, I have talked about it. And for the new people, whoever is here, there is a Prakriti and there's a Purush, or there is a spirit and matter. Matter is this whole world, the physical world. That's matter. That is made up of the 3 gunas. That is the building block of this Prakriti. Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. And so the way Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva work, everybody has all 3. So we cannot, as long as we have the body, we cannot get rid of that. But you can be Sattva Pradhan or Rajas Pradhan or Tamas Pradhan. That means when one of the gunas is acting out, the others take a back seat. They're still there, but they are kind of become less dominant. And these gunas, they are very sukshma, they are very subtle. So we cannot see them as gunas, but we see the effect of them. That's how we know. So when we come to chapter 14, it's going to tell you that if this is happening, that means the sattva is rising. If this is happening like that. So just to give you basic idea that, what are the rajogun? Rajogun में ना बहुत सारी desires होती है. और जब desire बहुत होती है, then you want to act. ये भी करूँ, वो भी करूँ. I think that America is Rajas Pradhan. Everybody wants to do something. So that means we have a lot of desire, we have a lot of passion, and उसका जो passion और desire का जो भाई बहन निकलते हैं ना, वो है anger, jealousy, craving. All these things are rajogun के अंदर आती हैं, So these are things in the mind. So when Bhagwan is saying shant rajasam, that means it's telling you that वो रजस तुम्हारा थोड़ा शांत हो गया है. तो ये सब चीजें जो है ना, desire, passion, anger, jealousy शांत हो गई है. And then the tamoguna usually is like dullness and ignorance. I don't care, I don't want to know, that kind of stuff. Veiling power, they call it. And Swamiji in his commentary is going to talk about it. And it is also delusion, confusion. All these things happen when the tamoguna rises in us. And then sattva is knowledge, peace, clarity, faith. When these things are rising, that is sattva. So now here he's talking about शांत रजसम. सो रजस शांत हो गया है और तमोगुण भी कम हो गया है, इसीलिए पीसफुल बना है. क्योंकि तमोगुण का जो उन्होंने बताया ना, अकल्मषम, द वर्ड इन दिस अकल्मषम, इसको सिनलेस बोला है, मगर where it is coming from, जब तमोगुण शांत होता है और कम हो जाता है. And तमोगुण gun ka I told you the whole thing is कि it is ignorance, delusion, those kind of things. जब आदमी ignorant होता है तभी गलत काम करता है, right? So that's why it is sin they're talking about. So it is relating to that sin. So obviously if अगर वो दोनों शांत हुए हैं तो इसका मतलब सात्विक गुण बढ़ गया है. You know that सात्विक गुण का भी यही है कि भाई knowledge, peacefulness, steadiness, all this is kind of symptoms of sattva guna. So then the famous example, we'll bring it again because these examples, when you relate to it, then it will stay in our head. It is that water. There are buckets of water and the water has dirt that represent the tamoguna, So the reflection of the sun shining up in the sky is not going to be there because it's all dirty. And then suppose if you take the tamoguna ko nikal do usme se or kam kar do ya piche kar do, so restlessness can be there, which is like shaking of the water. Again, the reflection will be all broken. So that is the analogy that we in our mind those things happen. So ये दोनों अगर कम हो गए हैं, खत्म हो गए हैं, पीछे चले गए हैं, then क्या होगा? Person will become Brahma Bhuta. So Brahma Bhuta means recognize your own self. That is his Brahma. So, and then it is not just recognizing, this Atma is that Brahma, but Brahma in all also. That's another very, very important thing of hallmark of self-realization, that you recognize, that this Atma, etad vaitad. That's what it is. This is the entire thing. That's another very important thing. So basically, if you want to analyze this further, this person, this meditator, realizes the real nature of the self. And the real nature of the self, we have studied many times now in Kathopanishad as well as Geeta, that it is Brahma means big. Big means infinite. Because when we talk about big in the world, it's always relative. Mouse is there, elephant is there, elephant is bigger than the mouse, and whale can be bigger than so it's all comparative here. Then nothing is infinite, but what they are talking about big means infinite. That's the biggest difference that when they talk about the Brahma, it's infinite. So usually what is happening is in our ignorance, I feel that I am confined to my body. That's how he explained it very nicely. Dilliwale Swami, that hey, I feel that I'm confined to my body. That's how we feel, and this little being inside the body somewhere, But what he realizes, really speaking, this little, spark of life in me is that Brahma, and it is infinite. And another example which will completely clear it, and for the new people, I'll repeat this example. It's like the space in a little pot. So if I'm looking at the space in the little pot, from the worldly perspective, I'll say, oh, this is a pot space. Okay. But if you think about it deep, contemplate upon it, it's not that the space is in the pot, but exactly opposite. The pot is in the space. Okay. So if I just focus on the space inside the pot, okay, I can use this space, I can put something and all that, then my focus is, if the space is really small in there, and I have literally like as though cut the space. But in reality, that's not true. Space is all pervading. So the pot is in the space, not only this pot, millions of other pots in the world are in this space. Not only the pots, there are galaxies and there are God knows, whatever you call it, all these heavenly bodies, beyond. They are all in space. So imagine the difference. So space is basically what he's saying, the space is very, very vast, right? So just because we see a little space, it does not mean the space is small. Exactly the same way that because we identify with our body, we feel that we are limited in the body, but through meditation, when we pay attention to the self, then we come to know the vastness of self. So that is the whole process here. Okay? And then once a person realizes this nature of self, that Atma is Brahma, that's when he's called the Jivan Mukta. while living in the body, you get the self-realization. So there is nothing to be gained more, because Krishna Bhagavan has repeated this many times throughout Bhagavad Gita, that this is the highest state, and the person is called, Sthita Prajna also. Gunati, Sthita Prajna. All these are pointing to the same person who is Jivan Mukta, because he has experienced the Sukham Uttamam, it said, the highest bliss. And this bliss, we have a very hard time comprehending what this feels like. For us, worldly things, somebody likes rasgulla and when they eat, they get the happiness, or somebody likes money and gets a lottery, then they get a happiness. Nothing. That's very, very minute. This is, million times more that we have a hard time comprehending, but, saints and sages say it who have experienced it. Krishna Bhagavan is saying it. And what is this happiness? And he had touched upon it, Nikhilanandji, very, very nicely. He said it's not that the person is feeling happy, but he has become happiness. It's like I am trying to kind of taste the sweetness of, say, a laddu. So I'm tasting the sweetness. No, I have become sweetness. So we have a hard time comprehending. And again, going back to that river and the ocean, the river entered the ocean, now it has become the ocean. Nobody can distinguish the water anymore. And that's when it realizes vastness. Hey, I am this. So that's how one of the examples that I like very much is of the river and the ocean. And then the other point, he just, for this to sink in, he was saying, Nikhilanji, very important point, that it's not, why do we kind of have a problem with the happiness that we get with the objects? We still get happy with the objects. If I like something and if I get it, I do feel happy. But uska science thoda मैंने पहले discuss किया था. It is actually the agitation is gone. That's why I'm happy. But chalo, even if we say chalo happiness मिलता है, but that particular type of happiness, if I relate it to that object, then it is temporary. Why? Because the objects are temporary. That's the problem. It's a conditioned happiness. Whereas what they're talking, the joy in this meditation, they're talking about is, it is of your own self, and that is because it's infinite. That's why the joy is infinite. Okay, so those are some of the scientific reasons that why a person. So, what in summary, those words are very important. That with continuously doing the meditation, practicing meditation, you become prashant manasam. So your mind becomes totally peaceful, quiet. And you attain the highest bliss, sukham uttamam. And because the shant rajasam, because your rajas has become shant, and akalmasham, your tamas is gone, and then you become brahmabhut, means you become one with the Brahman. So that is the summary of this whole verse. Any question, comment? Or anybody wants to add anything? I guess everybody feels satisfied. So if we all feel so satisfied, that means we are getting really good at it too. Yeah, Meenaji is there too. Meenaji, you always have something to say. No, this time no.
It's just beautiful. You explain it so well. It's complete. So, we're happy. We're happy with your explanation.
It's Swamiji's and Nikhilanandji's thing. I'm just repeating what they're saying.
You're repeating, but there's a difference. You're relating to us, and it makes so much difference. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I have to be thankful to all of you, because now I am also kind of relating it to myself too. Like, hey, am I understanding, So, because it's like, we hear so much about meditation and everything, but what I am thrilled at going through so much in detail now with chapter 6, that Krishna Bhagavan is really touched upon every aspect of it. So if somebody says, I don't know what to do, मैं तो हाथ जोड़ के बोलूँगी, please go and study chapter 6. You know? You're not going to have any doubt. And if you are having a doubt, that means we have not understood.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. He's not left any stone unturned. You know, or if I have a confusion, or you know, अरे ये करूँ या वो करूँ, if you have faith in Lord Krishna, there might be people who may not, but if you do, you have everything given. You know.
You know, I read it, but I don't get that much. And you point out things that I have missed reading it. I mean, I understand it. I know what he's saying. But then you point it so beautifully. I mean, that it just makes all the more sense.
I think that's why we have this class. It brings out, you know, with this synergy, energy of everybody who's you know, have a desire to learn. So it's like, it charges us to really go deep into it. That's what it is.
It does.
Yeah.
And I sometimes just go back and read it again with what you have told. So it just enforces, you know, the teachings of what he's saying. So.
Anybody?
It's all nice to talk about, you know, having this stillness, but it's really very difficult to achieve it. So yesterday when I was practicing meditation, I think I first did my chants, and that really helped me calm down the mind. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to meditate deeply.
Yeah, and those are totally legitimate things. Whatever calms your mind down, you know. So we have to just start with that and then bring a mind to self. That's all it is. And you know, in the previous verse we saw yato nischarati, and when we were doing the commentary, you know, Nikhilanandji said it can take months, it can take years. And in some cases, who knows, a lifetime also to practice, you know, bring the mind back. But one good thing is, as we progress in this chapter, Krishna Bhagavan is going to declare that whatever practice you have done, nothing goes waste. So that's where, even if I'm not there where I want to be, but I am better than before. So that's how we have to look at it. You know, where there's no competition, no comparison. We have to compete with ourselves, not with anybody out there, just with our own self where we are. You know, that's the main thing. Any volunteers to read? Meenaji, you can read. No volunteers.
Supreme bliss verily comes to this yogi whose mind is quiet, peaceful, whose passion is quietened, who is free from sin, and who has become Brahman. So I think you touched on every point, so I can see that.
Good. Mm-hmm.
As we have just now indicated in the previous stanza, when an individual's mind has been arrested from its agitated roamings in the world of objects and got fixed consistently upon the self, by degrees the mind gathers more and more quietude, and ultimately, when the flow of thoughts ceases, the mind also ends. Where the mind has ended, there the individual is awakened to the experience of the infinite nature of the self. Naturally, the meditator, yogi, comes to this supreme bliss.
So, Swamiji touched upon this, another way of looking at it, because, you know, these truths or these facts and all can be approached many different ways. So basically, we have discussed that mind means flow of thought, and compare it to a river. A river is only when the water is flowing. When the water सूख जाता है, उसको river ही बोलते ही नहीं हम लोग. River means flowing water. So when the mind means flowing thoughts, and when no mind means no thoughts are there. So it's saying, and फिर वो नदी के example में ना, when the nadi stops flowing or the river stops flowing, that's when you see the bottom, because there's no water there anymore. Same way, you know, the substratum is the self, and because the mind has become, because of the Shanta Rajasam and the Kalmasham, it has become totally quiet. No thoughts are there. So apne aap hi self is shining through. So that's another way you can look at it, that he experiences infinite nature. And with what is the nature of self? It's Sat Chit Anand. So Anand wala was bliss he experiences. तो दुनिया में भी जितना भी आनंद है वो भी वहीं से आ रहा है. even the objects में जो हमको मिलता है आनंद, actually it is आनंद of the Atma only that we are experiencing. So that's what he's talking about over here.
An intelligent inquirer has every right to question this assertion, for in a true science, the scientist has no right to assert at random his own opinion without arguments and to expect the students to swallow it all immediately down. In the second line of the verse, the reasons are given to show how and why the quietened mind becomes an open window through which the prospect of the self comes to our view. A mind thus held steadily in the inner atmosphere of thrilled silence comes to drop off all its previous vasanas. The mind gets freed from taint. Akalamasham.
अकल्मषम. So कल्मश उसको बोलते हैं डर्ट को. So यहाँ पर उन्होंने दूसरे एंगल से पकड़ा इसको, and it is just exactly same thing, but the way, every saint has its own way of explaining, and here is Chinmayananji's explanation. Firstly, he says that, Krishna Bhagwan is not pushing anything down anybody's throat. He gives enough reasons for everything, right? So he says, okay, the person has become quiet and, and all that. How? Because another way of looking at it, his vasanas are roasted. And then I think Anilji was talking about this last time, that all the tendencies that are there, they become shant. So that's, there are, karma yoga is one way. When you have too many vasanas and all that, then karma yoga is one way, and meditation is another way too. Both will do the same thing. But to jump into meditation right away, it won't be fruitful because everybody is experiencing man bhagta hai udhar. So wo karma yoga karne se man control mein aata hai. That's the whole journey. So agar apna man bahut bhag raha hai, then we have to focus on hey, what am I doing my everyday activity with the right attitude? So they are all related, both of them.
Okay, you mentioned just before that it's like reduce of tamoguna. Now, tamoguna means the ignorance of the real and the unreal, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the vasanas would be, though you know it, right? Though you know what the real and the unreal is, yet you are not able to control the vasanas because they have been there for years and years.
Okay, so what you are getting a little bit confused in a sense that vasanas hoti kyun hai? Because we have ignorance.
Because of the oguna. That's because we didn't know. Earlier we didn't know what the real and unreal was.
Even okay. we know it intellectually, Meenaji. But
yes,
yeah, we don't have the real experience, and we say we know it, but we don't. When we transact with the world, we don't go with that kind of conviction over there.
Right.
हम लोग को intellectually ये क्लास में सभी को मालूम पड़ गया है और हमें भी मालूम पड़ गया है.
That's what I meant. I thought.
Yes. So वो final जब तक all desires are gone, because remember when Arjun asked, hey, how does this person behave? Can you explain to me this Sthita Pragna who has become Jivan Mukta? First thing Krishna Bhagwan said, where all desires are gone. He's santusht with himself in himself, meaning with the Atma. We are not like that yet. We may be intellectually talking about it, but we are not there yet. That's why we still have those tendencies. And when it comes to, the values, you will see that as we progress in Bhagavad Gita, the values are going to get more and more and more subtle. Some people say, I have a lot of humility. I am very humble. So the fact that you are saying I'm humble means you're not.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? It's going to get like that. And there is something called dambha. And we may not even think that what is dambha. Dambha is, I have some talent I have, but मैं उसको बढ़ा चढ़ा के बता रही हूँ. So I'm just saying that we may be thinking, oh, I have achieved this, achieved that. अगर हमने अचीव कर लिया तो हम भी जीवन मुक्त हो जाएंगे actually.
Right.
So up to that point.
Right.
Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah.
I was just thinking of being intellectual understanding and not the real that I'm applying it.
Yeah.
So you're very right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So there is that gap, and that famous verse about in Mahabharata that what is the difference between Arjun and Duryodhan? Both had weaknesses, but Arjun was ready to face his weaknesses, change, and he told and Duryodhan said, "I know my weaknesses, but I still want to do this. I don't want to change." So then, koi kya karega, So,
Thank you. In Vedanta, technically, the impurities of the mind are called mala, and it is considered a constituted of spiritual non-apprehension and the consequent mental agitations. The wailing power, avarna, generated by the inertia of the intellect, tamas, creates in its wake the disturbing agitations, vikshepa, in the mental zone. The agitations nuisance in the mind is most prominent when it is under the influence of the Rajoguna. This theory of Vedanta explaining the fall of man to sorrow is fully echoed in the words of Lord here. Passions quietened, shant rajasam, and be freed from taint. I can't say the word.
Akalmasham.
Akalmasham. Yes, I just put it. Okay.
So here, he's taking this approach in Vedanta that, the snake wali jo analogy, and then people who are new in the class, I will repeat that analogy, that what is veiling power and what is vikshep. तो बोलते हैं कि आवरण और विक्षेप दो चीज. आवरण माने किसी चीज को ढक देना, और विक्षेप माने एजिटेशंस इन द माइंड को विक्षेप बोलते हैं संस्कृत में. So the great analogy in Vedanta is that I kind of wake up in the morning when it's still dark and I look outside my window and I see a snake. And I start screaming and shouting and, and all that. And then some wise person comes and he says, "Hey, that's not a snake, that's a rope." And I said, no, it's a snake. I can see the hood. I can see this. It's going to bite me. I'm going to die. And then they put a flashlight on it. And then, oh my God, it is rope. It is not a snake, right? So this is the analogy. And the person who's putting a flashlight think he's a guru. Okay. So now what has happened? वो एक्चुअली में रोप थी, मगर मुझे रोप दिखी नहीं, मेरे को स्नेक दिखा. तो मेरे मतलब डिल्यूजन था, आवरण हो गया मेरे दिमाग में, that I could not see it correctly because I didn't see it as a snake. Sorry, because I didn't see as a rope. Now I'm imagining it to be the snake. So the moment I'm imagining, vikshep ho gaya. Vikshep means agitation is in my mind. I start thinking 100 different things. It's going to bite me. I'm going to die. This, that, and all that. All those things are coming. That's called so. So he's just talking about those two things when I don't see Brahman and I see the world. That's when, because I have ignorance. So whatever I'm seeing in the world, I think it is world, but actually it is Brahman. And because I'm seeing it as a world, I have agitations. That's the analogy over here. Any kind of question about that? Okay.
An individual in whom all agitations have ceased and consequently who has become perfectly freed from his ignorance of the reality should naturally be considered as one who has regained his knowledge of the self. As long as there is agitation, so long there is the mind. And the self identified with the mind is the ego, who was the seeker who started meditating in the above process of meditation. When as it has been explained, the meditator has exposed his mind to the atmosphere of the inner peace and quietude, he comes to end completely all his mental agitations, and therefore the ego rediscovers itself to be nothing other than the self. This non-dual truth has been openly declared by the Lord through his brilliant phrase, Brahman becomes Brahman Bhuta. in describing the man of self-realization.
So here Swamiji is again, he brings a little bit difficult concepts of Vedanta, but whoever has been with the Vedanta for a while can probably connect to it, or I'll try my best. So he's just telling you the final stage. Another way of looking at it is, as long as there is agitation, that means there is mind. We talked about it, right? That means different thoughts are coming. And that means, what is the reason for it? Because we are still thinking we are separate from that Brahman. That's why those agitations are there, right? So their ego is still rising. And when he starts meditating, then what is happening? That his mind is becoming quiet for all different various sadhanas that he's doing, and with the knowledge and inner peace and quietude. Then complete agitation is down. That means the ego is, instead of saying that ego khatam ho gaya, he's the technical thing that happens is the ego rediscovers itself. Arey main to wohi hu. Like, for example, the nadi is thinking I'm separate, right? When it merges, oh, it's H2O. Okay, I'm H2O and that is H2O. See what I'm saying? So that's what has happened over here. That it's not that the ego chala gaya. No, ego has realized that I am Brahman only. That's it. So that's why peacefulness, happiness is there. And that's why these people, when they say they see the whole world in themselves, or they see oneness, that's why. Because the ego has rediscovered itself as a Brahman. That's what it is.
So we can say the ego is the consciousness plus the I-ness, or the mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that verse has already come in chapter 3 about that I-ness and minus. So you can,
right.
yeah. And I think in Meeraji is not here today. She knows Ramayan very well. There is a very famous one that, I think it's Lakshmanji who asked that, what is Maya? And Ramchandra ji say, tu or tor, main or more. Means tu or tera, main or mera is Maya. Means separation.
Yeah.
So there is a whole Vedanta in Ramayan, but they have in their own simple language, in the conversation.
Okay, the last is the paragraph is with the next verse, of course. Having thus explained the achievements of a true meditator, the Lord explains how this experience of the self can be thereafter the constant life of the perfect one.
So that's the one that, remember, Krishna Bhagavan has mentioned many times that once you achieve that state, you don't fall from it. So it becomes a constant for that person. So the person, you can express this state in many different ways that you want to. That, hey, the person is in meditation all the time. Like we say that, right? That the person, so they don't need to do anything or not do anything. So, sometimes I was thinking about it, because sometimes Kamlaji has that big doubt. Hey, why are these saints meditating? So there could be several reasons. One is, somebody had mentioned the reason that they have to be a good role model for us. If they start watching TV, which they can, it's not going to, जैसे हम लोग TV watch करेंगे ना, तो हमारे दिमाग में कूड़ा कचरा भरने लगता है. We start getting affected. When they do, उनको कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. They already know ऐसे संसार का चल रहा है ये ड्रामा यहाँ पे. But to teach us, they have to do it, number one. And number two, it is a nice thing to just be sitting quietly. Why not? So, but we cannot start assuming from there, oh, they have not reached the state, so they are trying so hard and all that. Nothing like that, They've already reached,
Yeah, and their work is, even whatever they do, it's done differently with a different attitude.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and then
They're
they start
working, but it's with a different attitude.
Yes.
They're doing.
Yeah. And not everybody will understand them either.
Yes, they won't.
I mean, Jesus को तो सूली पे चढ़ा दिया. So there are people who will totally misunderstand them.
Yeah.
But जिसकी बोलते हैं ना, दिव्य दृष्टि होनी चाहिए. या दिव्य नहीं भी हो, थोड़ी सात्विक दृष्टि होनी चाहिए देखने के लिए, because sometimes, like they may do different things, their only goal is one, Lok Kalyan. They have no other agenda in this world. Or they call it Lok Sangraha bola hai word, but Sangraha means to unite people. Basically, it is this thing. So in that process, they might do even some things that may look bad to some people. Okay, but that's not, their purpose is different, and they might handle different people differently also.
Yes.
Like our teacher used to say, there are swamis in Chinmaya mission, who will go and live in a jhopadi because they are going to a small village, or they might live in a 5-star hotel because that's where they organize some camp, because some rich people and all, they want to learn. They're not going to say, hey, I'm not going to stay in a 5-star hotel. If the need be, you will do that too. But some people might judge them, oh my God, if he's Swami, why does he living in that comfortable suite? See that what I'm saying? But hey, first become a Swami, then you'll know why you are. So world may be very quick to judge, but these people are dancing to a different tune. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Swami in Virginia, Swami Dhiranandaji.
Yeah, I've met him, Dhiranandaji.
Okay, and he sees movies, he hears the songs, but with a different thought. So
Yes.
he'll bring in the Krishna in there. He'll bring in something. He's looking differently. We look at the same movie differently, and he looks at it with a different aspect. And then in his examples, he brings out that those examples. What it means, what he thought, what it really meant to him.
Correct.
And everything pointing to the Lord, whatever he sees in that.
Yep.
So that's one way that's how they look at it, even if they look at those things.
Yep, absolutely. They see the Brahman everywhere.
Yes.
They trained their mind to see that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other point, discussion, or on this topic that we're doing? Or anybody want to add anything? Okay, then I'll close Bhagavad Gita here. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhya moksha ishyami ma shuchaha. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.